to introduce Dr. Ben Carson, who I also have a gift for. Dr. Carson, we have signatures from 35,000 pro-life Americans asking you, when you become president, will you defund Planned Parenthood?
Absolutely. Well, so wonderful to see so many people who are interested in life. You know, my whole career was spent trying to save lives. And, you know, if you look at a 1-year-old baby and how developed they are already, they're already walking and saying words and doing sign language and doing all kinds of amazing things in just a year's time. And that brain is still developing very rapidly. When that baby is only 6 or 8 weeks old, the brain is developing at a rate of 400 million neurons a day. That is a very sophisticated organ. And the fact of the matter is, it's much more sophisticated than these little creatures that the Environmental Protection Agency and others are trying to save, you know. Why don't they spend their time and effort trying to save human life? Why is a Snell darter more important than a human baby? And, you know, I've spent so many nights in the operating room, all night long, working, toiling so hard to save one of those lives. And you know, one of the most wonderful aspects of life is when later on you can see that same little baby as a 25 or 30-year-old who has their own little baby. And yet there was somebody at some point saying it was just a clump of cells that didn't mean anything. Well, isn't it funny that these same people who say it's a meaningless clump of cells are trying to get livers and lungs and kidneys? Because how could you have such organs from a meaningless clump of cells? You know, they're obviously being pretty hypocritical in that. But here's the worst thing about all of that. I think that we have just gradually slid in terms of our morals to a point where we don't really care about the killing of human beings. That is the bad news. The good news is I think we are changing, and I think things like this are starting to change us a lot. There are actually more people in America now who identify themselves as pro-life than there are who are pro-death. And, you know, we are capable of changing. You know, there was a time in this country where there were people who thought it was okay to own other people. And they thought they could do anything they want with them because they belong to me. I can beat them, I can kill them, I can do whatever I want to do to them. And we, fortunately, as a society, matured and began to actually think about what the words of our Declaration of Independence and what the words of our Constitution actually meant. Well, those words are meaningful today too, because they talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, guess what? There can be no liberty and pursuit of happiness if there is no life. So, you know, we need to start thinking about who we are and what do we believe in. And, you know, this whole concept that that little baby, which is in the most protected place that it can possibly be, its mother's womb, is somehow an enemy of that mother, and that she has the right to kill it, is such a gross distortion of God's original intent, which was to put the baby in the safest place it could be, a relationship with a mother who would do anything to preserve that baby. And we have distorted that to this level. And, you know, it's the kind of gradualism that we find in a politically correct society. And that's why I reject outright political correctness. Throw it away. And instead, why don't we actually start using our brains? And when we use our brains, they will help us to do things. You know, I remember I was approached by an obstetrician, and he had a woman who was pregnant and with twins, and the babies were too young to be delivered. Their lungs were not mature enough, but one of them had severe hydrocephalus, and the head was growing so rapidly it threatened to put the woman into premature labor, and both babies would be lost. And he says, I know you have a tendency to do daring things. Would you consider doing a shunt on that baby while it was still in the mother's womb? Well, you know, it's not so much that I do daring things, it's just that I do logical things. And I said, well, if we don't do anything, both babies are going to die. So in a circumstance like that, is it not worthwhile to try? So I got a hold of someone who'd been doing some experimental work on sheep, and I said, you know, Bob, what do you think that maybe we could figure out a way to do this in human beings very quickly? And we did, and you could see on the ultrasound screen the baby's head shrink as we put the shunt in, right in the mother's womb. And that little baby is now a young woman who is independent. And but here's what was interesting. When it came out, it was a big national news story, and there was a lot of criticism. People said it's unethical to do things like that. We're not ready to do intrauterine surgery yet. But when it became clear that not only the normal baby was okay, but the shunted baby was also okay, then all the critics said, well, I would have done that too under those circumstances. Well, we want to get to a point where they will think the way we do about human life, because there is nothing more precious than the life of a human being. And are we going to become a culture of life or a culture of death? Just think about the two different pathways and where they lead. And it is this callousness that has led to people having this hatred of anybody who disagrees with them, wanting to destroy them, wanting to destroy their life, wanting to destroy their career. This is all hand in hand. It is blatant evil that is going on in our society, and it is necessary for people of faith and people who have morals and values that made this into a great nation to stand up and be counted now and forever. Thank you so much.